Hello, everybody. This is José Ignacio from the Uncomfortable Dialogues 2022.
I am so happy to have today in our virtual studio Juliana Literio. She's a phenomenal Brazilian female leader. She has been working several years in Procter& Gamble in Latin America, and then she came to America, and now she's living in Boston. And as you can imagine, she's enjoying the weather because Boston is not so warm as Brazil. So without any further ado, how are you doing, Juliana?
Yeah, apart from the weather, which is always going to be challenging for me, I'm doing great. Very exciting moment in my business and really enjoying being here.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, Julian, I know that you moved from a corporate America company, which is Gillette or Procter& and Gamble, and all of a sudden you move into this small startup in Boston. But you did it also while the pandemic kicked in. So it's kind of a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it was. It was very interesting. Yeah, I had to change many things and adapt many things at the same time. So the first thing was adapting from a really big company that moved very slowly. I think I spent a lot of time convincing people what needed to be done. And when we moved to a smaller company that was poised for growth and fast growing, you need to spend a lot more time really doing, thinking about what you want to do and then getting your hands dirty, like, and moving things along, building capabilities, directing the team on the work that needs to happen. So it was a very different change from a business perspective, but also, joining a company during a pandemic was different because, many times it took me more than a year to meet many people in my team or my peers. So
Wow.
I had to learn to work differently and connect with people in a different way, learn a business without being with people, and that was
Mhm.
more challenging.
And you were talking me before we started taping that business hasn't been very stable. So you are really growing crazy. So it's not like you have had dull times to really think about training or think about new capabilities. It's just a matter of maintaining the pace of the business.
Yes. Yes, the business tripled during the pandemic, and some of it was actually some of the choices we made during the pandemic. And I think one of the things that has helped the business and has helped ourselves is really not panicking, because it's easy to panic when you see, I think a little bit of panic happened right in the beginning. The first months of the pandemic, everybody stopped and said, well, are we going to lose a lot of business? What's going to happen? But after that, just really staying attuned to what's happening in the market and looking for pockets of opportunity. And so I think it's really important in a crisis for you to see what's really like an issue that you have to deal as an issue, but also keep some pockets of hope and things that could happen and could do well. And I think that has helped us to continue growing. And then we had different challenge, which is how do you sustain growth and how do you support a growing business in a pandemic, which is a completely different challenge, I guess, than many other companies had.
Since you have kind of a toolbox based on the corporate American culture, how do you make successful interventions while you came to the new company? So can you tell us the two or three things that you have done so superbly facing the new reality?
Yes. So I think a few things that I changed in my leadership style with the new reality. I think the first one is I I had to be clear on goals and expectations, but at the same time, really staying flexible and adapting. So, you know, there isn't like a lot of day-to-day conversations for you, and people were working on their own. We had to lean in and trust them that they were going to be doing
Mhm.
the work, but at the same time, they needed to be clear on what the work needs to be, what the priorities are. And when you're growing very fast, and we were hiring very fast too to support the growth, people need to know where to focus. So what are
Exactly.
the most important thing they need to do? What would success look like? So having a lot of clarity on goals and expectations was really important. I think
Yeah.
the second thing is uh, becoming more intentional about your interactions, because when you're remote, usually I was very informal and you're used to bumping into people in the corridors and having a conversation about how things are going to happen. we had to create relationships while not meeting people. So becoming more intentional about those connections and, team meetings with really clarity on communication, facing reality, always like being really clear about what was really working well and what wasn't, and where our gaps were, so we could address them more objectively. And staying curious about how to meet people, what was important for them, to create a relationship even though we were not together. And I think when crises come, I think the first thing is we need to face reality and realize what the size of the problem is and where we need to focus, and what is the situation, because it's very easy to be stuck in the past on what you want things to be versus how they really are. And I always say you can't address an issue that you pretend doesn't exist. So we need to really call out what the issues are so we can address them. So that's really important. But at the same time as you do this, you need to have your goal in mind, so the clarity of goals. And I'm very determined, and people say I never settle, and let's keep the end in mind. And of course, you need to adjust and be flexible on how you're going to get there, but keeping your end in mind is really important, and guiding the team in the right direction. And I think the last thing is, crises are tough and they have a burden on people. So also at the same time as we remind them of the reality and the challenges, but also we need to keep pockets of hope and normalcy. So like celebrating wins and showing where things are really working as well. Otherwise, I think it's tough to keep the resilience if everything is heavy and negative. Like really focusing as well as celebrating some early wins, some successes, and keeping the hope that things can be better at some point in time, and what we need to do to make them better.
Well, congratulations on this piece of advice. I like all of them. They really make sense. They are right on target. And also congratulations on successful business growth that you have led for the last 2 years. But now, Juliana, we are running out of time, but I have one final question. And this is changing gears. Instead of talking about Juliana, the CFO of Thermacell, so let's talk about Juliana as the mom of 2 kids. What have you learned about this situation?
Yeah. Well, it was, I have 2 teenagers, so whoever was a parent of teenagers during the pandemic knows it hasn't been easy. A few things, like one is you learn that you're not really in control. And as an executive, you always want to be in control of the outcome, but you're really not. So you need to stay connected and stay curious to understand what's really important for your kid. And each kid is different, even though they're close in age, and each kid will have different needs. So really understanding what's important for them, staying curious on what the challenges are. And I think similar to what I talked, keeping some pockets of hope is important. It's very easy for a kid that is dealing with their first crisis to just think the world is going to end and life will never get back to normal. So creating like the small wins and those pockets of hope to get them back to normal is also really important.
Juliana, it has really a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the best. Good luck in the future, and let's stay in touch. And for everybody else who have any questions to Juliana or to myself, just write it down here in LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you too.